Hey everyone, this is the dialogue. Thanks to one of my patrons who wanted me to cover this guy called James Files. Now this man was a hitman for the mob back in the 1960s, probably 50s, but he was a young man back obviously in the 60s. He is now in prison and is doing time, probably for murder, I'm not exactly sure. But I've been asked to follow this guy and have a look at him. There's not a lot of footage on YouTube about this man, so this is all I could come up with. And we want to see if he was the one who actually made the shot killing John F. This man, James Files, believes that he was the one that assassinated John F. Kennedy, the one that did the major shot. Let's have a look to see what his body language.
Shots started being fired from behind, and I assumed that it was Mr. Nicoletti because he is the one that was in the building, and I knew that Johnny Roselli was there.
So these other people are hitmen for the mob as well, as he was. Now this guy here was apparently one of the main hit guys.
And I remember the shots ringing out, and even though the president was being hit with the rounds, I was considering it a miss because I knew that we were going for a headshot on the president. And I had known he had been hit in the body, but I didn't know what part at that time. And I seen the body lurch, and I saw the body lurch again. I heard another shot that missed, and we were supposed to hit no one but no one but Mr. Kennedy. And I guess Governor Connolly got hit with one of the rounds at that point. And I wasn't even sure of that because I was keeping Kennedy as best I could in the scope on the fireball.
Now apparently he was on the grassy knoll. He was one of those guys wearing a sort of plaid jacket. Someone had noticed. So I'm going to go over this footage again, but just in slower motion. Before was actually normal, believe it or not. So he's very jumpy with his face. His baseline's probably quite fast. He's got fast rhythms compared to a lot of people. So that doesn't mean to say that he's guilty. It may be just the way he rolls, and it could be his baseline.
Shots started being fired from behind, and I assumed that it was Mr. Nicoletti because he is the one that was in the building.
So if you look at his eyes, they're pretty steady, and what I mean by that, they're not wavering so much, and there's a lot of energy behind them, and this is like a psychological thing, really. There's a lot of energy behind them, and he's actually forthcoming rather than not coming forward, and you can see that in his eyes.
I knew that Johnny Roselli was there, and
so he's going into memory right there, and he's remembering the actions that took place. His tongue comes through his lips quite a bit, and that can mean that he's actually displeased with what went on. And apparently by this time he's actually a Christian. That's why he's sort of revealing what he's revealing. And he's also been coerced a little bit in this 1994, mid-1990s interview. I'm not sure if he's still alive, to be honest.
I remember the shots ringing out.
I remember the shots ringing out, and he had a bit of disgust over here in his nose. Let's have a look.
I remember the shots ringing out.
Yeah, so there's a number of disgusts. Let's go back again. There.
I remember the shots ringing out, and even though the president was being hit with the rounds.
And you'll see that he nodded his head on that, even though the president was hit with the rounds, tongue through the mouth. And you'll see that his head did a little head swipe. So that's a critical yes. It's like, yes, it did happen. And it's like the pulling back on that yes.
I was considering it a miss because I knew that we were going for a headshot on the president. And I had known he had been hit in the body, but
so he did know, so it was a critical yes.
I didn't know what part at that time.
Again, we've got the tongue through the mouth, though he's displeased. Or he could be just nervous, just putting his tongue through his mouth.
And I seen the body lurch, and I saw the body lurch again. I heard another shot that missed, and we were supposed to hit no one but Connolly.
Which was President Kennedy, and that was a Freudian slip. It doesn't mean to say that he meant that, obviously.
No one but Mr. Kennedy. And I guess Governor Connolly got hit with one of the rounds at that point. And I wasn't even...
Do you see that? So he nodded his head. Connolly actually got shot, which is true.
I was sure of that because I was keeping Kennedy as best I could in the scope on the fireball.
So there's a lot of head nods, which suggests that he, is telling the truth. It's congruent, put it that way.
And when I got to the point where I thought it would be the last field of fire, I had zeroed in to the left side of the head there that I had, because if I waited any longer, then Jacqueline Kennedy would have been in the line of fire.
He's often going back into memory, which is sort of this side. And as you go down this side here, it's more what you did. It's more action-based. Not 100%, but it's definitely an indicator.
I've been instructed for nothing to happen to her.
He's doing a lot of swallowing. I think his mouth could be a bit dry there.
And
A lot of tongue coming through his mouth. And that's where he's displeased, going into memory.
At that moment, I figured this is my last chance for a shot, and he still had not been hit in the head.
So that's a big head nod, and that's congruent.
So as I fired that round, Mr. Nicoletti and I had fired approximately at the same time as the hit started forward, then it went backward.
So when he makes eye contact with the interviewer and he raises his eyebrows, he's really trying to make him understand what he went through, what he did.
And when I would have to say that his shell struck approximately 1,000th of a second ahead of mine, maybe, that's what started pushing the head forward, which caused me to miss in the left eye. And I came in on the left side of the temple.
He came in on the left side of the temple. Supposedly, Kennedy was shot at the back of the head, on the back side of the head. But if you look at the footage, you can clearly see that it's actually the side of the head that President Kennedy's unfortunately shot. So this guy, he's the one that did that shot. So far, pretty congruent. I don't see a lot of deception going on. I mean, he could be, but it seems pretty congruent. Right, guys, so my overall analysis of James Files is that as unusual as he is, because he was part of a mafia mob, hitman, back in the 60s. Unfortunately, I find him quite congruent overall. Now, we can only ever really be 80% accurate, but I just find him disturbingly truthful. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Ding my bell. Also, thanks for my patrons.